Invest Africa, proudly brought to you by KPMG.
Welcome back to Invest Africa. Remember, we do value your suggestions and feedback, so please send us an email to investafrica@abn360.com or interact with us on Twitter through @CNBC Africa, #InvestAfrica. Still with me, my guest, Kola Masha, CEO of Doreo Partners, and Christopher Okeke, Executive Vice Chairman at Wicklow Group. Gentlemen, welcome back. Kola, I'm going to come back directly to you with this question. Having been on your website, I couldn't help but be attracted to a particular page which says how to create 10 million commercial farmers in Nigeria by 2030. Now, a very quick, brief overview. What are the key steps that you think need to happen for that dream to be realized?
Well, I think it goes back to exactly what Chris talked about earlier, that really to get agriculture going, you have to create surpluses. To create surpluses, you have to get farmers to be able to produce productively and profitably. And one of the most critical steps of that is access to finance. Because at the end of the day, if a farmer wants to produce maize at best practice yields to produce a surplus in Nigeria, he's going to have to invest somewhere around $500 per hectare in inputs. And you're asking a farmer that if he's lucky, he's making $2 a day, where are they going to get $500? And so the model that we've developed really unlocks capital to these smallholder farmers, enabling them to invest adequately in their farms and attain these surpluses. We have farmers today that are accomplishing yields that are almost 4 times the national average in commodities such as maize.
Let me come back to you, Christopher. I mean, if Kola says that the biggest challenge is access to capital, do you concur that this is what farmers are finding on the ground? And if we all agree that this is the biggest obstacle, what needs to be done, especially by the banking institutions and their approach and understanding of the agricultural sector to make sure that that capital is indeed unlocked?
I think it's fair to say that access to finance and access to finance is a problem, but it isn't the only problem. And I think if we look at it in isolation, then we sort of run off and fix funding, and then we come back and face the 700 other problems. The truth about Nigerian agriculture, I think, is that there's land as a big problem, finance is a big, or the absence of it is a big problem. Infrastructure, whether it is roads, water, appropriate storage, whatever. Seeds, competitive seeds are a problem. Insufficient information on soils is a problem. Input and output markets don't exist, and where they do, they're still in their primordial state. So they address the needs of my dear friend Kola and the small farmer model. I sadly start from the other side of the coin, which is the big commercial agricultural player. And then finally, there's education, and education in the sense of getting people to drive tractors in a straight line. For that reason, we have something that we're introducing, which is an apprenticeship program, which will end up with the same results eventually as what Kola has mentioned. Farmers who know the stuff, farmers who are commercial in their outlook, farmers who have been trained to be commercial farmers, not just given seeds with higher yield capacity, but who know the reasons why they do many things. And yes, finance does become a real problem. It is a problem. It will remain one until you change the views and the thinking of current banking institutions in this country. Everybody says agriculture is risky, but so is life. Everybody says agriculture is risky and therefore you don't invest, but there's short-term money, there's long, and there's medium. There's enough activity within the banking sector as it exists to cover short and medium without stress. The long may be a problem, and that's why you need government and its various interventions and plans that they have and that they're putting in place to ensure that it becomes possible to engage government in lieu of funding being available at low rates you can then share responsibilities for rural roads, for instance, with the local government. And that you get around the problem of absence of finance in agriculture for infrastructure and things like that.
Kola, let me come back.
By doing that.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Kola, let me come back to you specifically around the question of reforming the agricultural sector. Now, to a large extent, we've heard business crying out and saying that the pace of reforming the sector has been incredibly slow. Do you share those sentiments? And should the reform agenda be accelerated? Do you think that the list of issues that Christopher has put forward are likely to be addressed by reforming the sector?
Well, I think reality is that yes, the reforms need to, the acceleration of the pace of reform needs to be accelerated. But I think also, to a certain degree, we have to recognize that within government there's a fixed capacity to reform things, and I think the idea is, our recommendation would be to identify a few key commodities, a few key areas, focus on those areas that can have significant high impact. For us, as we look at, if there's one area in which the government should really focus on, our particular focus is on the smallholder farmer, and that area is really around solving what is their underlying structural problem, which is low economies of scale. Because of those low economies of scale, being relatively small farmers, they struggle to access the inputs, the credit, and the output markets necessary to be profitable. Now, to solve these problems, we firmly believe that the model that we've developed, which we call an agricultural franchise, where we franchise grassroots level farmer organizations and deliver to them the requisite services to enable them to be profitable and productive, solving those underlying challenges is really the fastest way in which you're going to really get the sector moving.
Christopher, let me come to you with a question of political commitment. Now, we saw for the first time that Nigeria's annual economic summit focused on the agricultural sector. Would you say that investors and others should read this to be a reinforcement of the centrality of agriculture and a reflection of the political commitment to get the sector back on its feet?
Well, it's dangerous to answer questions which are loaded with politics. I'm not a politician myself. It's difficult to speak for politicians absent. The truth, though, is that I think everybody has finally understood, and there is momentum gaining, whether it is in the private or in the government sector, that agriculture holds the key to the opening up of this economy, to ensuring that we're able to feed ourselves, to ensuring that we have fewer national security issues. Because everybody talks about food security, but I suspect that ultimately it's to do with national security. And I think that, to me, it seems is clear to government. Now, the pace, as Kola has mentioned, needs to be hastened, obviously, but as non-politicians, it's difficult to say when, how, or what it will take to make it move faster. But I think the private sector owes it to itself to recognize the opportunities that are inherent in agriculture as a business and take the initiative and lead the drive rather than waiting for sops from government, because it's going to take understanding agriculture to make the kind of meaningful interventions that will help the industry in the end.
Very quickly, Kola, before I let you gentlemen go, let's quickly look at the role of research and development and particularly ICT innovations in the agricultural sector. Could this be the answer that could see small-scale farmers really making a sizable impact on the sector?
Well, I think research and development more broadly, particularly on the input side, I think Chris alluded to the fact that really particularly on the seed space in Nigeria, we need a lot of innovation to come into that space. There's really no reason why the best available maize seed in Nigeria will get you maybe 3-4 tons when there's technology out there in East Africa that can get you 8 tons. So that area, firmly believe that play a role. ICT can be useful, whether it's the solution. Really, at the end of the day, ICT helps bring efficiency into the system. So when you're looking at a system that is so broken, efficiency enhancements don't really get you all the way.
We've come to the end of this week's edition of Invest Africa. Thanks to all my guests, Kola Masha, CEO of Doreo Partners, and Christopher Okeke, Executive Vice Chair